Hi everybody. My name is Tom Langhofer. I serve as our pastor of Recovery Ministries. I'm also a recovering alcoholic.
Hi, Tom.
Welcome to our Thursday night Resurrection Recovery. We started tonight, our first time back, to do the pizza meal at 5:30, and so hopefully people will start coming back to that. That was always a cool thing we did on Thursday nights, and so tonight was the inaugural night back, and so we had Finley go to the groomers because she wanted to look pretty for this. So
And she
so
does.
we'll start with our fellowship and a meal at 5:30. At 6:15, we'll have our testimonies, and every Thursday at 6:15, we have somebody get up and share their experience, strength, and hope. And then at 7 o'clock, we break out into our various support groups. So glad you're all here. And tonight, we were supposed to have Brad Farrell, and he could not get a ride out here. He doesn't have a vehicle. So Lauren and Jeff kind of battled it out, and Lauren is going to be leaving here in a month and a half, so we decided to ask Lauren to, on the fly, share her testimony tonight with us. So Lauren's going to be doing that, and I'm really grateful that you are doing this for us at last minute. So thank you.
You got it.
So without further delay, I'm going to go ahead and just turn it over to you, Lauren, and it's all yours. And your timer down there will keep track of you.
I was literally looking for a timer. Okay, yeah.
So,
Sounds good.
All right, it's all yours, Lauren. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Lauren Baker Thomas. I'm one of the pastors here as well, and I am in recovery from an eating disorder and exercise addiction. Hello. I don't have anything planned for this 30 minutes, but I am a good talker, so I'll be okay, I think. And I think that the place that I want to start is by saying that this is such a unique community. I was speaking with my sponsor and saying, I don't know that there's another 12-step community for me, and I'm leaving in 5 weeks. I don't know what that's going to look like. But this community has not only changed my life, but also really helped me look at my faith in a way that's more holistic. That God is someone who can be trusted. Trusted with the things that I don't like about myself, trusted with the things that haven't been willing to give over, trusted with the things that I try to control, trusted with the unexpected events that happen in our lives. Oh, Finley. Yeah. Goodness. No, it's okay. That's okay. So my story is I found that there are things in the 12 steps and things in addiction recovery that really resonate very personally with me that I never expected when I started coming to 12-step meetings as a pastor. We would have a topic, and I would be like, I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to have deep shame. I know what it feels like to not want to look honestly, fearlessly, and searchingly at myself. I know what it feels like to not be able to admit that my life is unmanageable. And upon reflection and being able to admit some of the bigger problems in my life, Tom was gracious enough to come to me the next day with a book, The 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, and say, might want to take a look at this. So this has been a journey from a different space for me than I think for most of the people that I've gotten to know in this community and in recovery communities in general. And I'm just really grateful that this has been a space that's been very open for me, who is trying to recover from something that's a little bit different. So my life, growing up, I was kind of an overachieving kid. I had I had a really cushy childhood. I'm not going to lie. My parents were together. I was able to kind of do the things that they were able to provide for me, the things that I needed, and I never thought twice about it. And there were expectations, there are expectations that come along with that, that you're not going to squander kind of the resources that your parents give you. And for me, that set me up with a lot of pressure. And I have been kind of trying to I took that on, and I have been trying to let that go ever since I was a kid. In high school, I was the message that I had learned from my dad was, and unintentionally, we just pick up messages from our parents. I had learned that I needed to be impressive in order to be worthy of love, even from my family. And from my mom, I had picked up the message that you can't trust yourself. You need to be polling the people around you for what you should think about yourself. And that led me to just really overexerting myself, to trying to overachieve in every aspect that I could, to be reaching for perfection, and so ashamed of myself every time I couldn't reach it. And the messages that I had picked up from my childhood, that I internalized, I made a part of what I really thought about myself, that I wasn't worth anything if I wasn't doing something impressive, that if I gave less than my best, or if I wasn't as good as the person next to me, then why was I worthy of anyone's time or care or love? So I went to college, and in my first semester of college, I was at the University of Michigan, and it was my dad's alma mater. And I went there because I thought that would be impressive to him, and I was really hoping to make him proud. And it was 1,000 miles from where I lived, from where my family lived, and I didn't know anybody. And I joined the marching band. I had been in marching band in high school, and I was doing well. I was making certain cuts for things that some upperclassmen weren't making, and I was performing better than I think that people thought that I would. And I, in return, got very badly hazed. Sounds odd, and it feels a little bit silly to say that I was really badly hazed by the marching band, but the Michigan Marching Band was really brutal to me. They created this publication where people could submit things anonymously, and then they would hand it out on the bus to away games. And when the first publication came out, my peers had submitted mostly things about me. There were 52 trumpets in the band, and I was just one of them, but about half the content was about me. And they had put my face on naked bodies. They had said horrible sexual things about me that there was no basis for them to say. They had talked about everything from my looks to my personality. No one wants to hear Lauren spew pure stupid anymore. Can someone please replace her? Can we just get her out of our section, right? And these were the only people that I could spend time with, because they were that was a life-sucking activity, right? It took 30 hours a week to play in the marching band. I had no other friends, didn't have a good relationship with my roommate, and so these were the people that I trusted, and they told me, "You're dirt." And it later came out that the people who had written most of that were the two people who came to me afterward and said, "I'm so sorry this happened to you, you can trust me." And so the feeling of worthlessness, the feeling of betrayal, it really started to pervade a piece of my heart that I didn't know it could. It it took that semester. So I called my parents. I don't know why I'm going into this like piece of my story, but I've got 30 minutes, so I'm going to do it. I called my parents, and my mom said, "That is so horrible. I cannot believe that they did that to you. You have got to tell somebody." And then my dad said, "Karen, you're overreacting. They're just being kids. They're just being funny. Let it roll off your back. It's fine. They're still your friends. Just roll with it." And to me, that just made me feel more alone. It just made me feel like I was overreacting. I should be able to control this within myself, right? I was too emotional. I didn't have it together. And if I had it together, then nobody would have seen the mess that was going on in my life, and nobody would see that I was weak. They couldn't get to me. And so I practiced trying to control everything on my own. It's not a practice I would recommend taking up. It's a pretty bad one. I had, in the midst of this, I had gotten this. So the publication wasn't the only thing that happened. People from my section went to my band director and said that I had cheated on something. People went to my marching coach and said she's not actually worthy of being on the field. And you know, there were different events that had gone on during the semester. I became pretty depressed, and I had gained some weight. And I went home for winter break, and my dad said, "Huh, you gained some weight." And we didn't talk about anything else that was going on. It was just that I should have been able to control my weight. And it started to compute for me that if I controlled my weight, then maybe I wouldn't have these problems. I dropped out of the University of Michigan, and I came home to go to work and to go to a community college. And I did that because I was so depressed and alone that I sobbed the entire flight back to Michigan. When I got there, I called my parents and I said, I gotta come home. I gotta stop. I gotta not be here. And I felt like a horrible failure when I came home. And the way that I decided to cope with that was I was going to be an athlete again like I was in college. I was going to, lose all the weight that I had gained in my first semester in college. I was going to somehow fix everything in my life on my own. I was going to fix the tangible things. And so I coped by really limiting my eating. I first tried every fad diet that there was, and those didn't really work for me because I always found a way to cheat the system, and so I just stopped eating. I would eat for show, and then I would get on the treadmill, and I wouldn't get off until it said the same number of calories that I thought that I'd eaten. And people were praising me for it, and so I thought that it was a good thing to be doing. I did this for about 6 months, and there were a few people telling me, this might be a problem. You might have an eating disorder. And I was like, well, you don't know what you're talking about because it's working for me. It was denial. And I thought that doing this would pull me out of the depression that I'd found myself in, that it would make me feel worthy of the love of the people who had told me that I was dirt. And I don't know why I was still trying to win their approval, but it was important to me. And so I did that for about 6 months, all the while being extremely depressed and feeling like I had failed. I went to, I transferred then to the University of Virginia, where I was on the rowing team. I had been rowing in high school before that, and if my coping mechanism was exercise, then rowing was a great hobby. So I joined the rowing team, and I was doing fine. I was making friends. I thought but I never felt like I was doing enough. I never felt like I was keeping up. And I met with a nutritionist over and over again who said, you have to eat more if you want to gain muscle. And I said, that's BS. You can't tell me that. I'm not going to do it. And then so I thought that the way that I could gain muscle would be to exercise more. So I found myself in the gym literally 30 hours a week, because we would practice for 20 hours a week for the rowing team, and then I would feel the need to try to keep up with everybody else, which physically my body couldn't do because I was starving it. And I would go and I would row more. And the whole time that I would row by myself, I would talk shit about myself in my own head. And an eating disorder starts here. And even if I hadn't been depriving myself, this was screwed up. It was so screwed up that I had convinced myself that I could get all the love in the world, I could get all the emotional things in the world that I needed, I could get everything that I needed within myself. I just had to create it. And the way that I create it is torture myself, right? It is to create the perfect body, create the perfect life on the outside, win the approval of the people around me. It's a lose-lose situation, because people start to see that you're sick and they don't love you more for it. Surprise. So my coping mechanisms weren't working. And I just dug down deeper and rowed more and ate less and felt like I was, if I wasn't getting it right with that, it was because I wasn't trying hard enough. And then I found myself in an immense amount of pain. My back started hurting, and I was rowing through it, and my coaches were not taking it too seriously, and I had been complaining about it for a couple of months, and I finally went into the athletic trainer and I said, I just can't bring myself to get on the rowing machine because I'm in so much pain. And boy, it is burned into my mind, the image of my coach when I said, I can't get on the rowing machine today because of my back. And she just looked like, yeah, I always knew you were gonna fail. And I just was like, everything that I had thought about myself was true. So I went to physical therapy. They made me stop rowing, which made me not want to eat because I didn't think I'd earned it. And I went to physical therapy for 8 months, every single day for an hour, trying to get back to the rowing team. And at the end of that, my coach called and said, yeah, I just don't think we have a spot for you. You've been out for too long and our team's too fast, and you might want to find another hobby. And so I tried. I threw myself into sport after sport, thing after thing, trying to find the fulfillment that I thought that I was going to find if I could just do my terrible coping mechanisms enough. And in each one, I found myself re-injuring my back. And the pattern was I could never stop myself before I was lying on the floor crying in pain. And I didn't know why that was. I never had a name for that. I just thought, I'm screwed up. And I've got, nobody else needs to know. I can fix it. As the years went on, this brought me at points to places where I felt like I would rather die than feel the way that I felt. Because the injury that I had sustained in rowing, I regained in every sport that I tried, right? I re-injured myself until I was crying on the floor in pain. And this was not muscle pain. This was not I overdid it pain. This was I had done something seriously wrong and I was just not acknowledging it because I couldn't get past this. I finally saw an orthopedist and a physical therapist, and they let me know about 4 years after my injury that what I had done was fracture my sacrum, which is 5 fused vertebrae at the bottom of your spine. Nobody can do that from overuse. It's usually a traumatic injury, or maybe an 80-year-old could do that from overuse. I did that from overuse. And I continued to row on it. And then I continued to try to play other sports on it. And maybe I liked the pain because I thought I deserved the punishment. It took a lot to get back from that for me, to believe that I was worth more than punishment. Even while I was in seminary, somehow it worked in my mind that I could believe in a God who loved me no matter what I did and still not treat myself well. It's been a long healing process, a process of recognizing that that's not the only way to exist, and of recognizing that I don't deserve all of that pain and that suffering and that deprivation. A process of letting people love me, letting people in and actually trusting them instead of trying to prove that I could do life on my own. And I would say that eating and exercise-wise, I was on the road to recovery probably 4 to 5 years ago. And then I came into the program and I started going to meetings, and I realized that while I had dealt with what the actions were that I was doing, I hadn't dealt with why I had done them in the first place. And I still felt that feeling of worthlessness and that feeling of needing to keep myself in line, and the need to be punished in order to feel worthy of love or of acceptance. And the word unmanageable was completely impossible for me to swallow at the beginning of this, because saying that my life was unmanageable would have been saying that everything that I had done up to that point hadn't worked, and that it had been for nothing. Now I know that surrender is actually letting somebody else, God, take control and getting to lay down the weight that you've been carrying. Not saying that it wasn't ever worth anything because it kept me alive at one point, but that when I don't have the strength to carry that thing anymore, that disappointment or shame or punishment or whatever it is, when I don't have the strength to carry it anymore, I can set it down, and that's going to be okay. The world's not going to come crashing down because God is there for me. I still live in chronic pain, and I will for the rest of my life. I have a genetic condition that predisposed me to the injury that I got, and I've made it so much worse with my actions that I've done irreparable damage. But God for me is someone who shows up even though I have screwed up a lot. God is someone who says, your worth was never in the stuff you did. It's always been in the fact that you were created by me, and you can't change that. I was reading something recently that said, you may have a lot of dirt, but dirt don't scare God, because God's a gardener. And that really, yeah, I love it. That resonated with me so deeply. And so, I don't think I'm ever gonna feel fully accepting of myself. I don't know, it's a journey. I'll be on it forever. I'll be working toward it forever. And yet I know that before I take that next step, every time before I take that next step into acceptance, God is already there waiting for me and telling me that I'm worthy of it. God is already there saying, I've forgiven you. Why can't you forgive yourself? It's okay. Lay it down. You don't need it. It's just extra stuff. life has been so much more freeing being in the program, because you realize that the thing that scares you so much is doing something that you don't know how to do, but all we know how to do is screw things up. And if we give it over, if we have the courage to do something new, God's gonna handle it. God's not gonna let you fall flat on your butt. And I mean, not that everything is going to go right in your life, because things are still kind of crappy. For me, I'm going to be in pain for the rest of my life. That stinks, and it stinks a lot, and I think about it a lot. But I'm never going to be alone in it. God is never going to leave me alone in it, and God's never going to say that what I have going on is too scary, or is too much, or hurts too bad for God to be there. So God is my strength. God is the one who carries me when I cannot stand physically. And I don't know how else I would have gotten to this point. So I'm leaving in 5 weeks to be a hospital chaplain. And I was talking in our Tuesday meeting about the only thing that I know how to do with my life is walk around saying, God's never gonna leave, God's never gonna leave, God's never gonna leave. God is always gonna be there, whether you know it or not, whether you accept it or not, whether you feel it or not, whether you feel like the scum of the earth. You might be dirt, but God's a gardener. So that's all I got. Can I run?
No. You can't just run away. She says she's leaving us, but she's also agreed that she will still be part of our recovery ministry via Zoom. Some way or another, we're going to keep her around. Yeah. So I wanted to, for next week's testimony, we have our very own Chris Berry.
Woo!
So you want to be here for that. But I was remiss for not mentioning beforehand, on the table there, next Thursday we are having our first, since COVID, panel event. We've had these many times in the past, but this is the first one we've had in like a year and a half. And it's called Addiction, the Family Affair, and it's going to be a group of panelists up here moderated by Frank Bowl. And if you're not familiar with Frank, he's been a local newscaster and radio talk show host for 30 years in Kansas City. And he'll moderate it. He's moderated these for us before. And if you know anybody that has been affected by addiction in any way, that is struggling, doesn't know what to do, tell them about this, because it will be a powerful event. So come for the pizza, the testimony, and as soon as the testimony is over, then we'll have a group of panelists up here, and Frank will moderate that. So I know Family Hope, one of their, Barbie, didn't you say one of your families, one of your are going to be some of the moderators, or the panelists, husband and wife team. So we'll have a husband and wife team. We'll have some young adults, and then I think there's 4 or 5 panelists. I'm not running it, so I'm not exactly sure, but it will be a group of panelists that will have all walked in the shoes of the struggles of loved ones watching their loved ones going through addiction. So it'll be powerful, and I hope you all can be here for it. So that'll be next Thursday night at 7, from 7 to 8:30. It's also going to be live streamed on our church YouTube channel. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. We'll look forward to seeing you again next Thursday. Tell people about the pizza. We got to get the crowds back. And thanks for being here. Love you all. Thank you.